Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Point Man Podcast. I am your host, John Imperial, and Phil Pelletier is here with me tonight. Phil, what's going on, man?
Hey, good evening, John. How are we doing tonight?
Oh, hanging in there, about to crack open this 50-cent IPA from where? Tuckerman's, right?
Tuckerman Brewery.
That's a good one.
Absolutely.
One of my favorites. It's always good on draft. Down at the Roadhog.
Very good on draft.
Oh,
Very good on draft. Probably my favorite brewery that we have around here.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's Moat Mountain down in North Conway.
Yep, Moat. Sebago has a brewing.
Okay. I haven't had any of their beer yet.
Yeah, I had it at the bowling alley in Bethel.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. I had, when I was on my way back up to northern New Hampshire, I stopped at the liquor store. Well, not the liquor store, but the rest area on 93.
Yep.
It does have a liquor store in it, which is kind of weird.
Of course it does.
One weird thing about New Hampshire is that there's a few liquor stores directly off the highway with their own exit.
Right with the rest stop.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I picked up the Concord Brewing, the beer that has the background, what would be Finding Nemo,
Okay.
the NE IPA from Concord Brewing.
Oh,
That was really good. I like that one.
I'm going to have to give that one a shot. Sounds good.
What you been up to this weekend?
This weekend, did a little floating on the river. I think that's a good North Country tradition.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go up to 13 Mile Woods and put a tube in, hit a little rapids,
Mhm.
Bring a cooler. And
You know, a lot of people that actually come up here just go to Saco.
Yep.
Because it's so, it's common, it's popular, it's right
Yeah,
in the middle
it
of
is.
Conway.
I mean, I guess I'm just biased. I prefer just going up almost to Errol and floating down to Seven Island.
That's not bad. How long was it?
So I did a 3 mile stretch. It was about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We did 2 laps. It was
Oh,
good.
there you go.
Yeah, no, it was a nice afternoon.
Nice. And then yesterday or today, you went on the good old boat.
Yeah, took the boat out on First Connecticut, so way up in Pittsburgh, basically Canada for everyone on all the listeners.
Right.
It's basically in Canada.
It's not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's
No,
Pittsburgh, New
Pittsburgh,
Hampshire. Two
Yeah.
completely different areas.
A little different.
Yeah, yeah. And
One's got like a population of who knows what, and the other one's got a population like 500.
is it that high?
I don't know.
It's-
Although they do have a lot of people around there. I mean, the tourism there is just crazy. I bet you their
Yeah.
cabins are full every day from people just, going up and enjoying our Great North Woods, and
Mhm.
B, all the ATV rentals and people who just come up with their own ATVs.
Yeah, it's actually weird you talk about where I talk from people back home and they're like, yeah, we go up to Pittsburgh. I'm like, you really? Like, I never thought
A lot
that.
of people do. Back Lake is a super popular one. There's camps that are Airbnb'd all along that place.
Yeah.
And the Connecticut's are a little less commercialized, I feel like, than Back Lake.
Mhm.
But just beautiful lakes, beautiful water. Deep, too. Like, I didn't realize how deep it was till I pulled out my chart map.
Yeah.
And I'm, like, floating over 140 feet of water.
No one hit a
which
rock
is-
this time, did they?
No rocks this time, thank goodness. It was close. Yeah, it was close. But thank God the waves were coming in hard on the end of the day,
Yeah.
and just between trying to get the anchors up and the waves lapping against the boat and the wind's blowing. Oh, yeah.
Now, what are you going to keep the name of the boat the same thing? You're going to change it?
No, we're going to keep that one a state secret.
You are?
Oh, yeah. No, that's none of that's
Classified?
going on. Yeah, that's classified.
All right. I'm not going to put it out there.
No. No, I do need to rename the boat. I heard it's bad luck if you just unname a boat and don't have it. So I do need to rename it since it's mine now, and
We're not going to tell it
I'll figure out what that is when the time comes.
when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So today on the podcast, we have Dave Edwards from Humanizing the Badge. He, along with a few other people, started the nonprofit Humanizing the Badge with the goal of kind of on a bigger scale what we're doing here at the podcast, at the Point Man Podcast, to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the general public. And speaking with Dave, he also started another nonprofit called Call for Backup, which that one is mainly for law enforcement, suicide prevention, and awareness. We talk about his experiences being a police chaplain and how that's been going for him, where he grew up, and all that sort of stuff.
I know Fish and Game used to have a chaplain with them.
Really?
Yeah, I saw him working the ATV festival a couple years ago. I'm not sure if he still does it, but they did have a I don't remember what exact religion he was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going up and he had a name, whole kind of the same uniform, but not, no duty belt, nothing like that. But that's what he did. He liked to get out with the guys and be around them and be able to provide, that kind of support when needed.
Do you have to, I should have probably asked him this question, but do you have to have a certain denomination?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I would,
kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. At least like my only experience with chaplains is kind of really only been in the military.
Yep.
And so, they're kind of more or less like a facilitator than anything else, where if, you have somebody who's that outlying religion or whatever it is.
I think it's, the faith as opposed to, someone specific,
Mm-hmm.
I think like there probably is like a difference for Muslim as opposed to Christianity.
Like Buddhism too.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm thinking if you're Catholic, Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, all that, it's kind of probably falls under the same umbrella. I would assume, but that's just my own opinion on. I don't know at all.
Okay. Yeah, we talk about his experiences and a couple different calls that he has been on. It's weird because I learned that where he works is in Michigan, and they actually have kind of a reserve. For us in New Hampshire, it's the part-time academy, but they have an academy specific to chaplains. And so I didn't ask him how long it was or anything like that, but they still go through firearms, defensive tactics. They learn some laws. And so he actually works a lot of details.
So is he like kind of a part-time officer at
Yeah.
that point?
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
And I think that's good because me, I've gone to counseling, and I think I've seen 3 different counselors. And the first one I went to, the guy was sitting there looking out the window. And so what help did that do to build any sort of relationship to like get you to open up?
Right. Hey, I'm talking to a painting here.
Yeah, like literally just
staring off in the distance.
Yeah, I could be like wave my hand in front of his face. Hello, you there? Like, what's going on?
Yep.
And the second one was decent. The third one was the best. And I think that for me, my experience is the rapport building I had was with the third one was the best thing that helped me be able to open up.
Right.
And so what he does is when he'll go on shift for, let's say, for sake of argument, I don't know how long it is. I didn't ask like specifics of, hey, do you work 40 hours a week or anything like that? But he'll go and work a few hours with certain shifts. So he'll get to see everybody for X number of hours a month and be able to just like sit down with them. He'll go to calls with them, whatever it is, and he'll interact just like, as you would expect a part-time reserve officer would interact with people, as more or less being the second man. And so he talks about his experiences with regards to that. And I think it's pretty good because you're riding around in the cruiser, and as you and I were just talking, where do you, as a police officer, tend to open up the most? Probably riding around. I should probably put my phone on silent right there and take care of that. Airplane mode, here we come. So Phil texted me from across the room. So, as getting back to it, you tend to open up, I think more in the cruiser with the guys or the girls you're working with. You start talking about random stuff, and so he tends to build that rapport with them so he can at least know who they are, know like what their family's about and stuff like that. And he's not mandated a lot to have officers speak with him. He kind of just like opens it up like, hey, I'm here if you need me.
I'm a resource. Use me if you feel you need to. But yeah, I think that's good, that it shouldn't be a mandate, but that he does make himself very available. And I'm sure in those times when he's just riding around is probably the best time for them to talk, in between calls or whatever they can do.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just making the most of that time. You actually have somebody in your family that is involved with, religion and the church, right?
Yeah, I have an uncle who's a pastor. And I know before he became pastor of the church that he's at currently, he actually used to go minister up at I want to say it was the state prison right in town. I've never really spoken to him about it beyond that I knew that he did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly how that came about or what he did, but I know that I think that's really what got him interested in being more of a pastor and someone to share and probably start preaching.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, with that, Phil, I'd like to say thank you for having you here. And
always a good time.
Phil is not going to be joining us during the actual interview. And when I speak with Dave, here he is, Mr. Dave Edwards. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Dave Edwards to the show. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. You got that coffee with you to get ready right through this?
Absolutely. If you don't mind me plugging Black Rifle coffee, that's what I'm drinking this
morning.
What
kind?
The Thin Blue Line blend.
Oh, all right. I have some of that Black Rifle, the one with the medic on the medic symbol. I got some of that going right now. Definitely
awesome.
Definitely a good company, after, all the veterans coming back and wondering how they're going to, start their life. And some of them decided to start coffee companies, and they've taken right off.
Yeah, they have. And they're generous folks, too. They've donated to the Humanizing the Badge organization, and they just recently have pledged a donation of $15,000 to our call for backup suicide awareness and prevention campaign. So yeah.
That's absolutely phenomenal. I love to hear that. Yeah. I love to hear that. As I don't know if you and Humanizing the Badge had put that out there, but I don't know if they had as well. But even if it was just one of those kind of like, behind the scenes donations, that's amazing.
Sure. Well, we're waiting for an opportunity for an actual press release.
Gotcha.
My son Mike is going to be out in Utah soon, and they're going to do a photo with the big check and all of that stuff out there. But we have been talking about it a little bit, that they have been generous to us.
That is absolutely amazing. Now, for everybody who doesn't know, obviously, if you're listening to the show, you kind of have an idea. Dave is the president and the COO.
Yes.
Of Humanizing the Badge. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that started a few years ago in hopes of bridging that gap between law enforcement and the general public that we serve. And it is something that I think gained traction first probably on social media with a few hashtags, and then became a organization. Is that right, Dave?
Yes, the way things sort of blended together right after the Michael Brown incident in Ferguson,
mm-hmm.
and then not long after that, there were two New York police officers Lou and Ramos, that were ambushed and killed, and there was a police officer's wife in Amarillo, Texas, who was just moved by those incidents and the reaction that people were having toward police, and the fact that police officers were being ambushed and targeted. And she wrote this piece called "Dear Officer, I See You." And she wrote it, put it online, got up the next morning and found out that it had been shared 600,000 times.
Wow.
So that idea kind of took off, obviously. And about the same time, my son Mike, who is a police officer here in Michigan,
mm-hmm.
Also had begun writing. And one of the things that motivated him to write was the loss of his brother, the line of duty death of his younger brother, whose end of watch anniversary was just actually not too long ago. July 23rd was the 10th anniversary of my son Matt's end of watch. And Mike had started writing and putting some stuff online. Well, he and this officer's wife from Amarillo sort of saw each other's stuff and started communicating with each other, and Humanizing the Badge as a social media platform was born from that. Meanwhile, I had started a small nonprofit here in Michigan called the 227 Project, and 227 was my son Matt's badge number.
Okay.
And that nonprofit was established for the purpose of providing counseling and mental wellness resources, critical incident stress management training, and response and so on for police officers and their family members. And after Humanizing the Badge had been going and growing for a couple of years, there was a decision made to transition the organization into a nonprofit. So what we did is we took the nonprofit that was already established in honor of my son Matt, and we just adopted the Humanizing the Badge name for that nonprofit organization.
Wow! No.
So we still continue as a social media platform, of course, with about 330,000 followers,
right?
And then we also do the nonprofit work where we ask for donations to do hopefully some significant things that are beneficial to officers and their families and their communities.
No, definitely. In that social media nowadays is probably one of the best ways to actually start strengthening that bond and actually bringing everybody closer together, because they can see, cops as normal human people, and actually that, they can show the funny side of them, they can show the serious side of them, and it's kind of the way for everybody just to get a glimpse of, how cops are just like everybody else out there, especially with, I know you have Officer Daniels on your board of directors as well. And I think,
yes.
And Mike the cop was, right?
Yes. As the co-founder of the organization, he still has a voice with the organization, but he's not officially on the board at this point.
Okay. And he just retired, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
I think the impetus for his retirement from the profession was the incident in Atlanta where the officer there was charged with felony murder.
Yeah.
In that shooting incident there, and he thought, I don't want that to happen to me. I can't afford to jeopardize my family's financial future for this job. And quite honestly, and he's put this out there, so I'm not. I don't think I'm breaching any confidence when I talk about what his situation was. He had gone to part-time as an officer just because of all of the other things that he's got going on that are really the substance of his living. And, to jeopardize all of that for something that he was only doing part-time just for him wasn't worth it.
Right.
So he spent 10 years in the profession and is still obviously invested in supporting police officers and in humanizing the badge and continuing to put content out there that is educational and informative, but entertaining as well from time to time.
Yeah. I think that Atlanta incident got every single police officer in America thinking about their career, because how can a taser, and I don't want to, I guess, but whatever. How can a taser go from being a lethal weapon one day to 7 days later being a non-lethal weapon? I just don't get it, but yeah.
I suppose it depends on who's using it.
Yeah, exactly, correct. And so. Yeah. Where did you start? Are you originally from Michigan?
Yes. Born and raised.
Okay.
What part? Michigan, and just outside Detroit.
Okay.
I grew up in a town called Taylor.
Okay.
And it's about 12, 14 miles west of Detroit. And I went away to college when I was 18, and
did you stay in state for that?
I did not. I went to Missouri and trained as a minister, and I held positions in churches in a couple of other states before I finally moved back to Michigan. And I was in Texas for a while and Illinois for a while, and then in addition to being in Missouri while I was in college. But in the early 80s, our family moved back to Michigan, and we've been here ever since.
What part? What state was your favorite to be in other than Michigan?
Oh gosh, if I were to want to live anywhere besides here, it would probably be back in central Illinois.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I spent several years in Champaign, Illinois, the Champaign-Urbana area where the University of Illinois is, and so in addition to the church work that I did there, at one point I left my position as a youth pastor at a church in Illinois, Champaign, and became a dispatcher for the Champaign, Illinois Fire Department. So I did that for a while in my younger years, so much younger that it was even before the days of 911. You had to know the number to the fire department if you were going to call and report a fire. You couldn't just call 911.
That's funny you say that, because that still happens where I work. It's in a smaller area, but people just call the police department directly sometimes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And so, did you ever get on as a reserve or a volunteer firefighter or anything like that?
I did. There was a small volunteer department east of Urbana, Illinois, that I joined, and so I did that as well. I would much rather put on a duty belt than an SCBA. I just have to. Oh yeah.
Really, it's always that joke between law enforcement and firefighters that every cop wishes he was a firefighter.
Oh yeah.
So, but
I have a lot of respect for our firefighter friends. In fact, my best friend in Champaign, Illinois, was one of the firefighters there, and he ended up retiring as a battalion chief, and we're still good friends to this day, and our family's still really close. So I have a lot of respect for. I know people tease firefighters. I don't know if you've ever been in a training session with Dave Grossman, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman.
Nope. I unfortunately haven't. I would love to if I ever get the chance. I'm taking that.
I was in Baltimore May of last year, in one of the sessions that he was doing at a conference that I was a presenter in the conference as well, but I was taking his session, and he was teasing the firefighters in the class. He said, those dang firefighters, they just eat till they're sleepy and sleep till they're hungry and repeat.
That's a good one. I'm
using
honestly,
that. When they work, man. That's hard. That's hard work. So
yeah,
I have a lot of respect for them.
Exactly, and it's that we bust on each other because we're both in the same profession, relatively speaking, and you can't. If you're outside of those two professions, and you can't make fun of one another, type of thing. Exactly. We do it because we can all relate, and then if you're outside of that, no, it's that just stays between us. So
exactly.
But so how was that class with Lieutenant Colonel Grossman?
It was really good. He has a lot of good information about stress and stress management, and how we react under pressure, and what some of the physiological changes are that we go through, and what some of the psychological changes are that we go through when we're experiencing that stress alarm when it goes off. So, I try to, in addition to teaching everything that I teach, I try also to learn what I can learn.
Right. Always a student and always a teacher.
Yeah.
Always a learner.
Yep.
But no, I have two of his books. I have both the On Killing and On Combat, and they're actually in the stack of books that I have to read. But no, I'm looking forward to getting through them, and I've heard nothing but great things about his trainings and his presentations, and I would love the opportunity to go to one.
Yep. Yeah. He's a good man.
Yeah, and so after you come back to Michigan, did you start working back in a church?
I did.
Yeah.
Which I did until 2003 on a full-time basis. And then in 2003, I resigned from the church that I was a pastor at, and began to work for one of the private Christian universities in Michigan.
Okay.
and I was with the university until 2014. And at that point, I just sort of began to kind of float around. I started using some of my retirement money and just doing, a little more of what I wanted to do with life, because I had a little more time.
Right, exactly.
And that's when I really began to get more heavily involved in teaching critical incident stress management courses and becoming more active as a coordinator for a critical incident response team. And that afforded me, leaving the university position afforded me the opportunity to just spend more time investing in those kinds of activities, which ultimately led to my son Mike asking if I would want to become part of the Humanizing the Badge organization, just to establish and manage sort of the mental wellness aspect of it, because as the organization grew, they were getting a lot of communication from police officers and their wives or husbands, as the case may be. And a lot of them were pretty distressed about things that were going on. And a lot of them, they were seeking some help and wanting to know, is there somebody that I can talk to that understands what we're going through, and, that sort of thing.
Now, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right.
Did you, when you were in the church, did you recognize or did you work with a local critical incident stress team or anything like that to actually get started within this, or how did that happen?
Well, where I got my my education in stress management really had nothing to do with emergency services at all. I went to a seminary for a PhD degree, and actually did it in pastoral counseling.
Okay.
And chose the avenue of stress management as sort of a focus for my pastoral counseling degree. And I worked in a physician's office for several years, counseling patients who were recovering from accidental injuries or recovering from things like strokes or dealing with chronic illnesses like MS and that sort of thing, counseling them in handling the mental and emotional toll that having that kind of a physical condition takes on you. So that's really where I began to build. And I hate to use the word expertise, but that's where I began to develop the expertise that I have in the area of stress management.
Okay, so that makes sense now. And now that I know that, now how did you? I know you said you have two sons in the law enforcement career field. Is that how the transition became to actually start getting in within law enforcement, or was that people that were going to your church that hey, do you mind if I talk to you, sort of thing, and just knew that they were in policing and
Well, I've always, no matter where I've been, there have always been first responders who were part of the church family, where I was. So building those relationships was pretty natural thing. And of course, I didn't necessarily treat them any differently than any other congregant, but I developed a bit more of an understanding of what folks working in emergency services go through, of course, as a result of having them as part of the church family when I was in ministry. Making the transition myself into being more active with law enforcement came after my son Matt was killed in the line of duty, and it wasn't very long after that happened that I had the opportunity to to begin working as a chaplain with the department that he had worked for.
Okay.
When he was killed. So I've been a chaplain with that department for about the last 9.5 years.
Okay.
And about 4.5 years ago, I actually became a reserve officer with that same department.
No, that's awesome.
As well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, what is your role as a police chaplain? Where I come from in the Northeast in New Hampshire, I don't know of any police departments that actually have a chaplain. And I've been through 2 actual stress debriefs, but I've never had an opportunity to sit down with a police chaplain whatsoever. I think the fire departments may have one on, maybe here and there, but I've never even. I've known of police chaplains, but I've never actually been able to speak with one before. So you're the first.
Sure.
So I'm going to pick your brain.
Yeah. Well, first, I think every department ought to have a chaplain. I think every emergency services agency across the country should at least give their personnel access to a chaplain, whether it's a local chaplain network or actually having somebody come on officially as a chaplain with the agency. But my role is basically to be an outlet for the officers themselves.
Okay.
To just vent and just to have conversations, and I don't try to come across as somebody that has all the answers, and I think sometimes people appreciate just the opportunity to be honest about their feelings, and one of the things that I think we've figured out with emergency services is that about 95% of what's going on out there in the world really isn't all that bad. But
Correct.
About 95% of what police officers and others in emergency services respond to is bad. It's the worst.
Mm-hmm. You're never going to somebody just called 911 to say, "Hey." Well, I mean, some people do because
exactly. Well, yeah, because they're morons. But when our perspective on life gets jaded like that, then the natural thing is to question whatever that system is, that belief system we've always had that helps us make sense of what happens in the world around us. And I'm there to help them explore that perspective, and to encourage them not to give up hope, and to try to help them see the reality versus just that myopic look of everything that they see so up close all the time, that if they are able to step back and take a look, that the world really isn't that evil a place.
Yeah.
So that's part of the work, but the other part of the work that agencies can use chaplains for, besides the ceremonial stuff, yes, I'm going to go pray at an awards banquet. I mean, I know that's going to happen. But there are other things. I mean, sometimes, an officer is going to get married and he wants the chaplain to perform the ceremony, or, just different things like
the
that.
Traditional stuff.
Sure. But in addition to that, helping with the community, doing ride-alongs and being part of conversations that are going on with individuals that the officers are responding to and their needs, and comforting victims of crime, or helping calm a situation down, or dealing with somebody who is struggling with thoughts of suicide, or maybe has made a suicide attempt and needs to get to the hospital, or somebody has died, and so we're we're there to comfort the family, or we show up to assist an officer with making a death notification, so that the officer can do his or her work, but not necessarily be. And I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of the reality. No police officer enjoys doing death notifications, and they don't want to be the one that hangs around with the family afterward to help them through the aftermath of hearing that bad news. And so having a chaplain that can be there so that the officer can do his or her job and then move on to the next thing, while the chaplain is there to support the family and help them make, any other phone calls or contact their personal clergy, or whatever that is. Chaplains can support the work of the police officers by taking some of that load off as well.
Yeah, no, death notifications is, when I became a cop, I didn't know that, that we had to do that. And I mean, when I've done
Right.
ride-alongs, and what you see as a young kid in a ride-along, you don't see that sort of stuff. You don't see the paperwork at all.
Right. Yes. Yeah. 15 minutes of fun and 3 hours of paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't see the stressful, the other stressful calls, like those death notifications. Now, I've done them where I've left and I'm like, I've been there 2 minutes, and it's kind of, we were expecting something to happen, and I feel like I'm, after the literally 2 minutes I've probably been there, I felt like I was, I left it like an incomplete job. But I mean, you tell you want to stick around to help them out, because they probably start thinking of whatever they're thinking of. But at the same time, like I told them what I had to, and I comforted them. I told them about different resources, and they're like, "No, all set." Okay. And then I've had the other way around, where it's been obviously the most devastating thing that's ever happened, especially the one I did with the Marine Corps, and and I've had the other ones where they start threatening us, and it's like, no, we didn't have anything to do with this, obviously, and so that's definitely the things that you don't see when you are thinking about police and law enforcement, is actually the stressors that you go through on a daily basis, and just the compound in your career. And that's a good thing that you actually go and are willing to help out with those, to stick around with the people after, even mm-hmm. probably not speaking for you, but probably after we leave the police, just to help them through the process.
Right. Yeah. And it's important work, and it's also something that I think raises the level of respect that the community has for the police department
mm-hmm. Without a doubt,
when they provide a service like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's great. That's great. I didn't even think of that, and I think that there's probably I should bring it up at the next patrol meeting we have, and just talk about, hey, do we have a chaplain we could reach out to, just to do the things you're talking about right now? It's a good resource.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time to develop a good chaplain program, mm-hmm. honestly. And I know that there are a lot of departments across the country who just reach out to a local pastor to say, "Hey, would you like to be our chaplain?" Which is fine for the ceremonial stuff, right?
Correct.
But it takes a lot of time for that chaplain to build trust and to build a relationship with people within the department, so that I'm sure you're aware that cops don't just trust people, implicitly without questioning their motives or
exactly,
or considering them a suspect, perhaps.
You know what the worst thing is, when somebody brings in food and it's like December 24th, and you deep down that they have the best intentions in their heart to actually say, like, hey, thank you for what you do, and I would say, obviously, some of the food that gets dropped off at the police department, but that actually gets eaten, But then there's some of that food that doesn't at all, because you're thinking to yourself like, why are they bringing us food? But
exactly.
But exactly. No, it takes time to build that trust. And, I had never actually had a conversation with a chaplain until I got into the military. And I went to the military later in life, and it was actually something like, I wasn't standoffish with him at all, but it took time for me to see him throughout the days and the weeks and the months being there, to actually get used to just going up there and saying hi and talk to him, just because he's at that point where I was in training, he was probably the only one that was actually interested where like what I did in life and whatnot. So you just got to talk to him and, and just to pick their brain about different things. And it's a good resource because, especially in the military, when you talk to chaplains, it's, if someone's having a bad day and a bad week or month, and they're having those suicidal thoughts, that's somebody you can reach out to no matter where you are across the country. Because I know where I can speak for just the Army, but a lot of those guys have connections throughout the country. So if someone's having even the West Coast, I can reach out to my chaplain who will get in touch with somebody just to go and talk with them and make sure everything's all set. But it definitely takes time, like you were talking about, to build that relationship within the police department and have them be comfortable with coming forward to you.
Sure. Yeah. And I've got connections with some Army chaplains as well. I've taught the suicide awareness and prevention class on several military bases. And chaplains have been involved in that process of helping plan and organize and get participants there for the class and that sort of thing. So I have a lot of respect for the military chaplains, because they, when a unit gets deployed, the chaplain gets deployed,
right?
And they're right in there with everybody else, and I think
they're not allowed to carry weapons. They actually have their own bodyguard,
right? Yeah, that's true. Which I thought, man, that'd be cool. I'm too old. I'm too old now to become a military chaplain, but I thought, man, that would really just be awesome to have a bodyguard. I'd feel like a general or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Which is funny because a lot of those guys are. I mean, I think you have to be an officer to be one, but yeah, so you couldn't get the rank. But it's funny. It's something I knew. I knew a former friend of mine. Just I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was actually the chaplain's assistant, the Navy's version of the chaplain's assistant, and talking about being deployed with them and whatnot. So it was quite interesting. He'd go from helping him set up services to being his bodyguard.
Yeah, I know. I didn't quite understand that term the first time I heard it too. She's the chaplain's assistant. Oh, like a secretary?
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when the guys and women at the police department now, are they mandated to come to you? And obviously they can volunteer and come up to you and probably talk to you at any time or call you. But are there the ones that are also mandated or could be mandated by their administrative personnel to come and speak with you?
I haven't really experienced that where it just somebody was ordered to come talk to me.
Well, that's a good thing.
But there have been some situations where it was obvious that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's voluntary or involuntary, this conversation is going to happen. But never like that with an individual, though.
Okay.
I've never had anybody who had to come talk to me as an individual. But let me give you an example. We had a couple of years ago, I was actually working an overnight detail in Taylor. I was on the south end of the city with another officer, and we had a fire that happened in a residence on the north end of the city, and our police officers actually beat the fire department there
Oh, that never happens.
Right? But they heard screams.
Love you, firefighter. Sorry for that.
Yeah. But these guys roll up. They hear screams, so they start going in the house. It was fire was showing when they got there, and they brought out a 27-year-old female who ended up passing away on the front lawn. They brought out I think it was a 3.5-year-old girl that was in critical condition, but lived.
Okay.
And then the fire started in the basement underneath the bedroom of a 16-month-old, and they couldn't get in to get the 16-month-old out of the room. So they had two fatalities, and the shift lieutenant called everybody back to the station once they were able to leave the scene. Called everybody back to the station, and he and the sergeant had a conversation with the shift, and then said, all right, the sergeant and I are going to leave. We'll be in the office, but you're going to talk to the chaplain.
Yeah.
And I sat there and had a conversation with the entire shift. And it wasn't like, he said, I'm ordering you all to talk to the chaplain. It was like, the chaplain's here, so you guys are going to talk to him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's good that they actually did that. That's awesome.
But, I think the good thing about it, though, was I had already established relationships with some of those officers that were on that shift where they had already trusted me enough to come to me one-on-one with some things that they had going on. And so I'd had private conversations with a lot of them anyway. So it wasn't like they were being thrust into a situation where, hey, we don't know this guy. And, so it worked out. There are other times, like with critical incident stress debriefings, where people directly involved in an incident have pretty much been told this is part of the process, and so you are going to do this,
mandated by law in some cases.
Yeah. So, but I think if we spend enough time developing relationships with people within the department, then even if it is something that they know they're going to be required to do, they don't just do it begrudgingly. They're still willing to do it because they understand that it's helpful, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no qualms talking to people about I've gone to counseling before, and when I didn't know the counselor, I mean, the ones I've gone to, I've had both, great experiences and not so great experience with the counseling. But
yeah,
when that bond, that, whatever it is to help break down that barrier from person to person, when that doesn't exist, it just, you can hit those hot button topics or issues or whatever you want to say, and actually you can make it as short as you want or as long as you want, depending on how you are as a person. So you can you can make it very, and this could be an hour conversation, and yep, I'm all set, and I'm no thoughts of harming myself, whatever it is, and move on. But if you have, even in that professional capacity as a chaplain, or even as a psychologist, to actually have some sort of little bit of, just even a hint of a relationship with the person that's coming to speak with you, that can be the world of difference for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be able to speak the same language, and to, I think the other advantage that chaplains have that are truly a part of the organization, where they're permitted / encouraged to do ride-alongs and so on, where officers can get to know them on a little more personal level, but see them sort of in action, interacting with people in the community as well.
Right. Right.
Always helps too. And I think in some respects, and this, I'm not going to say that this is true in 100% of the cases, but I found that just like in the military, in law enforcement or the fire service, having someone who has done the actual job itself, I think enhances the opportunity for that trust to build, maybe even to accelerate the process of building the trust, because there's an assumption there that you actually do get it because you've had training and you've been on the street and you understand what we do.
Exactly.
And, that sort of thing.
Exactly. You can relate even in the smallest capacity to what's going on. And, it's kind of almost a leadership principle where you're if you're the leader, you're the first one through the door. So the guys know behind you that they can trust you when it comes to this because you follow them. It's just, I guess I'm just kind of relating in my head to some sort of like leadership principle to that I've been hearing, but it's definitely the guys can build that relationship with you, and you know where we're coming from, and you're not just another chaplain that they just brought in because something had happened, so they don't have that. And as like you said, you're a reserve now, and what we're talking about, especially when you're working 60 hours a week because you hit that 40 and you still got to maintain those details and to get some extra money coming in, and then something happens. So the guys are stressed out between work and home life, making the bills, and then something happens at work that you can just be like, hey, man, I just got off a detail last night and I'm here talking with you.
Yeah.
Now, for the Humanizing the Badge and the call for duty backup or call for backup, was that was two different entities in the beginning?
Well, actually, call for backup started out just as what we called a suicide awareness and prevention campaign within Humanizing the Badge, and it grew so rapidly that in January of 2019, that was actually spun off as a separate nonprofit organization. So it's Call for Backup is its own thing. I happen to lead both organizations at this point, but there is with Humanizing the Badge, of course, we still are concerned about the mental wellness of officers and their family members, but our peer support personnel that we have that volunteer to chat with folks, we don't have two separate entities that do that. It's our Call for Backup peer support personnel that monitor messages to the Humanizing the Badge social media as well, to interact with people who are sending messages to the page looking for somebody to talk to.
Got you. Okay. And I mean, for people who don't know, suicide within law enforcement is a very prevalent issue. I know it started a couple of years ago. I actually have a friend that was a police officer in Massachusetts and took his life, and it was something I never dealt with before, and I think it was right around that same time that you used to start seeing a lot of different either awareness campaigns, like you said, or different other charities that came and started not because of that situation, just right around it. And I mean, there's other organizations out there, and I know of one, Blue Help. I don't know if you know of them.
Yeah, and I do. I've had several conversations with the founder of that organization. So
okay, it's definitely. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, she and I have talked, quite a bit, and have shared some ideas and information. So.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's actually sparked my interest in just helping both organizations, because I mean, and I know Blue Help is a newer charity. I think it started in 2015 or 16, but they're gathering information from law enforcement officers and correctional officers who have taken their life while either in the line of duty or were retired at the time, but in just kind of compiling the numbers to talk about it and bring in an awareness to it. So,
yeah, and it's tough because there's no official national database that departments have to report a suicide to.
Correct.
So it's very difficult to be sure that the numbers that we're getting are actually correct. I mentioned Dave Grossman earlier. He estimates that as many as 450 active officers are dying by suicide every year.
Wow, I had not heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's tough. Now, there was a law that was just passed that is going to mandate, just like with line of duty deaths and injuries, there will be a national database that departments are going to be required to report suicides to of their personnel. So that will, I think, reinforce the need for organizations like ours that continue to do the work to not only build awareness, but to teach prevention strategies to personnel.
Correct.
And help people understand their role as peers, to engage one another in conversation, and especially to recognize when a person may be at greater risk for suicidal thinking, and how to intervene with that person, how to get them to the level of care that they need to get past those situations. So the more we know, and the more we can prove the extent to which this phenomenon exists, the more that will demonstrate the need for organizations like ours that are doing this as a charity, but it's obviously something that is desperately needed in the emergency services world, because we lose not just more police officers every year to suicide than the line of duty, but more firefighters as well, according to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And, research shows that suicidal thinking in emergency medical services is about 10 times greater than in the general population.
Wow.
There's research out of Wayne State University that says that corrections officers are at a 39% greater risk for suicide. So, there's a lot of research that's been done, and just having something formal that requires agencies to report suicides, I think, again, will just emphasize the fact that this is not something that we've just made up just so that we can have a charity.
Correct.
No, this is a real issue that needs to be addressed and resolved, and hopefully we can begin to see those numbers actually come down.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important for people to recognize. And when I became a cop in 2010, there was still some of that stigma that was left, or that was still around. And people, when I say guys, I mean both male and female. But the guys, were suck it up, don't talk about it. And a lot of them drank it away. And you would even hear the guys that had just retired before, within a couple of years, you'd be getting there in the same exact way. Like, there's something wrong with you if you need to go and talk to somebody. And I think that even over the course of my 10 years as a police officer, it's definitely gone down, but it hasn't gone away yet. And I kind of attribute to that. And I was talking with Phil about this, a couple of days ago, that I kind of attribute that to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, with those wars, you saw many different ways how war changes everyday life for people. And I'm not just talking that the wars and being deployed and how it changes the person or the soldier, the Marine, the airman, or the sailor who's actually deployed. What I'm talking about is because of the things that we learn from war, whether it's new technology, new medicine, medical technology, and the counseling that came out of war has definitely helped the law enforcement in the long run, because all of these guys who are, coming back, and like I said, male and female, the guys who are coming back, a lot of them have to go to counselors, and a lot of them, you can carry on a normal career after that and having seen a counselor, and a lot of them come back and, are police officers now. So I think that that's one of the things that kind of picked up steam for the law enforcement community after the beginnings of those wars, and it's definitely a good thing because of it.
Yeah, there really is an influence from the military that has benefited law enforcement, because I think nationwide the number is about 20% of police officers are military veterans, and so
is it that low? I thought it would be more than that.
Yeah, I think that's about where it's at.
Okay.
But, probably higher in some communities than in others. But the experiences that those folks have had in the military can enhance their law enforcement experience, of course. But that it also means that they're bringing some baggage with them into their law enforcement career as well. And I've talked to a lot of guys, that I have the opportunity to talk to as a chaplain, who are dealing with a phenomenon that we refer to as moral injury, where, as a result of their activities in theater, having to take lives in combat, and then dealing with this thought that, but doesn't the commandment say thou shalt not kill? And we could have a lengthy conversation, I'm sure, about the justification for killing in war, which and I'm not saying that it's something that God is going to send somebody to hell for, but still we have a conscience.
Correct.
And we know that when we're responsible for taking the life of another being, we are assuming a great deal of power, and we rightly wonder, does that power actually belong to me? Do I really have the right to decide when somebody lives or dies? And that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
But people, having been through combat, do struggle with that. Again, we call it moral injury, and so having a chaplain to talk to about that is something that I know a lot of our guys have found very, very beneficial.
Right. I mean, just having the chaplain around, because unfortunately getting a hold of the VA is a lengthy process. And even if they've been out of the military for X number of years, and I'll just give, let's say 7 to 10 years, and they're just now needing and recognizing that they have to talk to somebody, and they go back to the VA and they're waiting for months and sometimes years after that, after actually initiating the process to be able to speak with one, when you have one at work, like you were saying, that you can just call up, hey Dave, you get a few, an hour I can talk with you, and just go from there.
Yeah.
I assume that's been a lot of your experience.
It has been.
Just guys coming up to you and just sitting you down, and you've probably had those conversations that you thought were going to take 5 or 10 minutes that actually end up taking hours.
Yeah. Of course, there are situations too where
I call them the Floodgate Conversations, where they just
and sometimes I can recognize the more I get to know some of the folks, the more I can recognize when they're holding something in that needs to come out too. And, more than one occasion, I've contacted an officer to say, hey, let's meet up.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because, we haven't talked in a while, so I just want to meet up, and they'll avoid me for as long as they can,
Yep.
And we've at one of the departments that I'm a chaplain for, we had a guy actually works out of an office in the department, but he knew I was there that day, and so he hopped in a car and just started driving around town. So he knew I wouldn't be able to catch him in his office.
I can think of a few guys at my work that might do the same exact thing.
So I ended up calling him and saying, hey, meet me in this parking lot.
Yeah.
And so I actually drove over to that parking lot, and he met me there.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And it's like, what's up? I said, I just wanted to be able to look you in the eye.
Yeah.
And really gauge how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that over the phone or by text. I wanted to see how you're really doing, And of course he appreciated it, and we chatted for a while. And,
even if it's,
but if a police department just recruits a local pastor to say, hey, be our chaplain, that chaplain is never going to have the opportunity to do something like that with one of the officers. That permission is not going to be there for them.
Right. So, exactly. They actually have to be some sort of proactive at it. And, it's not just like you said, I've been taking a few notes. It's not, just to have for the sake of having one. It's,
right.
to build that relationship with the guys in the community as well. Now,
exactly.
Now, for Humanizing the Badge, what do you guys actually do for, members of law enforcement and their families for someone who's saying, hey, I need some sort of help right now. I got shit going on and I need to talk to somebody. How does Humanizing the Badge actually help?
Well, it's sort of a tiered approach.
Mm-hmm.
For one, we do have trained peer supporters who can chat with folks. And sometimes that's just online, via Facebook Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes it's, people prefer to have a phone call or, that kind of thing. So I leave it up to the peer supporters and the people that are asking for some help to decide how best they can communicate, what they're most comfortable with. But beyond that, sometimes just having a chat with somebody, our peer supporters are trained to recognize when they've reached the limit with that person, to say, you know what, this person has a need that is greater than my capacity to help. And so we need to get them to another level of care. So we do have a number of sources where we can provide referrals.
Okay.
For local counselors.
Do you have
people can see
counselors throughout the 50 states that you could, local ones?
Well, some in some states they are more sparse than in others.
I can imagine,
obviously, but essentially nationwide resource for sort of a combination of several different databases of providers. But what we try to do is investigate, do a little vetting before we make a referral to make sure that the person, the professional that we're referring to, has experience in working with first responders and or military, and has in their profile some things that would help us ascertain whether they understand trauma, post-traumatic stress, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure that there's a level of competence with that therapist that we may be referring somebody to. And of course, then it's up to the individual to make that contact to determine if their insurance is going to cover it, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah. Insurance, the lovely battle insurances.
Yeah. And I honestly, I talked to a lot of cops who, who are still covered by TRICARE, and and not a lot of therapists in private practice are going to get paid.
Yep.
From TRICARE. So,
yep. Yeah, it's the good things and bad things about military health insurance that I've seen so far. I mean, I only pay it's shy of $50. It's like $42.80 something cents for my military health insurance, which is absolutely phenomenal. And that's that a month. So it's not a week, it's that a month. And my agency pays me to not take their health insurance.
Yeah.
So there's the win, the monetary win, but at the same time, they can be a giant pain in my butt. And when you're even just trying to get an appointment, and it can be it's a pain. And to get them to pay on anything is even worse.
Yeah. But we, we help as much as we can. And then of course, a lot of therapists will say, we'll offer services on a sliding scale if you're going to pay by cash, so they can get the cost reduced that way. In fact, I've had some where, give you an example. Your insurance only pays 50% for mental wellness. So, each session is going to cost you $100. Well, what if I'm a cash patient? Well, it's going to be $60.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go to the ATM before.
They're billing the insurance $200, and they get $100 of it from the insurance and another $100 from the patient. But if the patient's a cash patient, $60.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's like a lot of people will say, "Well, I just can't afford that," and whatever. It's like, well, you can't afford to let your life, continue on this downhill slide either. So you got to make a choice. You've got to have some priorities, and if spending $60 a week for a few weeks to get the help you need and understand some strategies that you need to employ in order to improve your condition, to be stronger, be more resilient, then that's going to be a good investment in your future. You just got to prioritize that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, are you available to, a lot of the families need support as well. And we actually go through different stress debriefings within law enforcement. Your families are oftentimes able to attend. And now, are you guys available for families as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And that's definitely a good thing. I know it was actually Taya Kyle who started her own foundation about actually helping law enforcement families and strengthening that marriage and that relationship and just kind of getting back to the foundation.
Yeah, I know another friend of mine, Adam Davis, has done some work. He does bulletproof marriage seminars, and he's done some work with Taya Kyle and her foundation, and also does some joint speaking and writing with Lieutenant Colonel Grossman as well. So that family aspect of it is critically important.
Bulletproof Marriage is the book that Mr. Grossman just came out with, one of the last ones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one that he co-wrote.
Okay, gotcha.
With Adam Davis, yep.
Gotcha. Well, Dave, I know it's getting. Do you have anything last to say right now? Did I just interrupt you?
No, I mean I could talk for hours.
Well, that's a good thing. It means you're passionate about what you're talking about.
I mean that's the problem with asking a preacher if he wants to say a few words. It can last forever.
Right. Well, No, I definitely appreciate you coming on, and I know we had a little bit of a time hack to meet today, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. And if anybody wants to support or find Humanizing the Badge, where can they and how can they support?
Well, there are a couple of different ways. Obviously, we're on social media, so just on Facebook. If you just search for Humanizing the Badge, if you don't already follow us, you'll be able to find us that way. And same thing with Call for Backup. You can find us on Facebook.
Okay.
And then our website is www.humanizingthebadge.com or www.callforbackup.org.
Okay.
So that's how folks can find us. And if they want to financially support the work that we do, then there are ways to donate through both of those platforms.
And how much of each donation actually goes towards the program itself?
Well, they're like my office is a little corner of my living room.
I completely understand that because my studio is my spare bedroom, and I bought like the foam insulators that cost, I don't know, $12 to $15 on Amazon to help with the sound. So
right, yeah. So we don't have any overhead expense for office space or anything like that, and whatever we spend on postage and paper and whatever. But other than that, our goal is to put everything that we can into actually supporting the work of the service that we provide to our personnel and their family members.
Now, you guys hooked up with, is it Relentless Defender Apparel?
The owner of Relentless Defender Apparel is on our board.
Okay.
Humanizing the Badge, and so they have a couple of different T-shirts that support the organizations. One with the Humanize logo, where the profits from the sales of that shirt go directly to Humanizing the Badge, and then Slater designed one for Call for Backup as well, where 100% of the profits from that shirt go directly to the Call for Backup program. So yeah, they are an awesome company, and their slogan is not just another apparel company, and that's absolutely correct. They are so generous and so giving. They're definitely not in it. I mean, they make a lot of money because those who give end up receiving things. Things come back to you when you're generous.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And so I don't begrudge a nickel that Relentless Defender makes in profits because they're generous with the money that they get. So,
well, it's good to hear. That is very good to hear. Yeah. A lot of companies have been hooking up with different charities, whatnot, and sponsoring their T-shirts, hats, stickers, whatever it is.
Right.
And
right.
That's great to hear that they've done that with you and Call for Backup. So.
Yep.
All right, Dave. Well, I want to get you out of here and not keep you too much longer. I know we're both on, even though in Michigan you're on the Eastern time zone, which seems kind of baffling to me, but we'll try to get you out of here. And I appreciate you coming on. And if you said you and I both started this podcasting journey recently about the same time. And where can they find the podcast for you?
Right now, it's just on Facebook. It's the Project Human Podcast.
How's that been going?
It's been going well. We put up just one episode each week. We do it on Zoom, so there's video with it as well. And each episode really is only about 15 to 20 minutes. And obviously, we share it on the Call for Backup and Humanizing the Badge social media as well. To improve the reach, because we're just getting started. But we've talked to officers who have been involved in shootings. We've talked to the surviving spouse of a Virginia trooper who was killed in the line of duty. I've talked to the watch commander from the communications center in Dallas who was on duty the night that 5 officers were killed there. I've talked to a pastor who was part of the response to the Pulse nightclub shooting and did death notifications in the family center for survivors of the Pulse nightclub, and so we've had some good conversations on there, and they're all obviously still on the Facebook page for people if they're interested in going to take a look and listen.
Yeah, well, that's definitely great to hear. And how are you producing the show itself, or did you guys hire a producer?
Well, if you follow Mike the Cop, you know that he has this young man that he refers to as the underpaid producer, and that's actually his son Elijah, my grandson. So Elijah produces that podcast for us.
Okay. It's been quite the journey. I think I've talked about it on other podcasts where it's taken me a week and a half just to figure out the logo for the logo, like the actual artwork for Apple iTunes, and I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong. And my $200 laptop, and that's probably the reason why we're not doing this on Zoom or anything right now, but my $200 laptop almost went through the wall because I couldn't get it figured out. But it's definitely been quite the journey, and it's a fun one. I had on you'll actually be the 4th technical episode, but my 2nd interview, and the first one was roughly 2.5 hours long, and it was here in studio, and it was a retired fishing game lieutenant who I know from the area who actually was involved in one of New Hampshire's most infamous shootings, and it was just picking his brain about even mental health, and we talked about everything with Wayne, and so I understand where you're trying to keep the podcasts and the episodes short, even though ours is about at a little over an hour right now. So I definitely understand that. So you guys are not on Apple iTunes or anything like that?
No, not right now. We're exploring where we might be able to expand to, but we just want to see how well it was going to be received on that platform on Facebook first, and so far so good. So I think we'll probably look for other platforms to offer it on as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to get you out of here, and I really appreciate you coming and speaking with me. And it's definitely been informative, and I've taken a bunch of notes just to even just to have in life, and even bring to my police department to talk with them about it.
John, thanks so much for wanting to have the conversation about Humanizing the Badge and our Call for Backup program, and if there's anything that I can ever do for you, if you have any other questions down the road that you think I can help answer for you, just give me a holler.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right,
I'll talk to you later.
God bless.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, hope you like the podcast. And Phil, if people like the podcast or don't like it, where can they go?
They can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, any place you can think of that you can listen to a podcast, whatever you use to listen to it. You can find us there. If you can't, let us know. Hit our DMs up and
slide into them,
and we'll make it available if you wanna listen to it.
That's right.
Definitely want you hearing it.
Exactly. You guys can go on there and give us a 0, give us a 5. I mean, I say that we really don't care what you give us, but we kind of do because we want to put out a good product, a good show. If you have any good feedback or negative feedback, and you tell us to stop doing this, I don't care. We're going to keep doing it. But
constructive criticism, always welcome.
Exactly. If you guys want to follow us, you can do so on Instagram at PointMan Podcast, where you can interact with us. You can slide into the DMs. You can email us. It's pointmanpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave us comments and whatnot, and like and subscribe wherever you listen to those podcasts. And I would like to go and do an Instagram live. So if you guys start following us, we'll do some Instagram lives when we actually have in-studio guests. I think that'd be something pretty cool to do. We do have a couple
on-scene, on-location interviews.
That's right, like Tool Time of Home Improvement. If you guys remember that from back in the day. We're going to be Point Man Podcast live, in a few different locations. One's going to be Pipe Dream Brewery in Londonderry, New Hampshire. The other will be Donut Love in Newmarket. And yeah, if you guys like this, go subscribe. And thank you for listening.